In the fall of 2023, wrecking crews tore down a 43-acre office campus in Virginia. 3 buildings, 2 parking garages. Gone in an afternoon, no one stopped them, no one protested. 20 years earlier, that campus was the headquarters of a company worth $222 billion, more than Ford, more than Boeing, more than General Motors. That company was AOL, and the story of how it went from the most valuable brand on the internet to a pile of concrete isn't really about the internet at all. It's about what happens when a company wins so completely, it forgets how to keep winning. Let's go back. 1983, computers barely talked to each other. Most of them sat alone in offices and living rooms, disconnected from everything. The internet as we understand it today didn't exist yet. A handful of scientists had networks, nobody else did. A guy named Bill von Meister looked at that gap and saw an opportunity anyway. He built a service called GameLine, letting Atari 2006 100 owners rent video games over a telephone line, $1 at a time. It was clever. It was also badly timed. That same year, the video game industry collapsed by 97% in the span of about 2 years. Von Meister's company died in the wreckage of an industry that had barely gotten started, but one of his marketing consultants didn't walk away when it fell apart. His name was Steve Case, and he'd spent years carrying around an idea that had no obvious place to go. He'd read a book years earlier that convinced him computers would eventually connect ordinary people, the way the telephone connected voices. There was no career path for that belief in 1983. So Case worked in marketing at consumer product companies, waiting for a door to open. Von Meister's failing company was that door. Case and a few other laid-off colleagues took whatever was left of Von Meister's technology and rebuilt it for the Commodore 64, one of the most popular home computers of the era. They called it Quantum Link. It let people chat, send email, and read the news over a modem, years before most Americans had heard the word internet. Apple even hired this same team to build a matching service for the Apple II in 1988. It fell apart when Apple couldn't migrate its data properly, but the contract had a penalty clause worth $5 million, and Case collected every cent. He used that money to consolidate his services under one name in October of 1989. America Online. AOL was small, broke, and completely unknown outside a niche of computer hobbyists. Within 4 years, that would stop being true in almost every way. By 1993, AOL had grown to around 300,000 subscribers. Respectable, not dominant. CompuServe and Prodigy were still bigger, still chasing the same tech. AV customers everyone assumed were the only real market. Then AOL hired a marketing chief named Jan Brandt, and the entire competitive landscape changed within a couple of years. Her strategy was almost embarrassingly simple on paper. Stop charging people for the software. Give it away. Everywhere. She started by mailing free floppy disks to households across the country. The response rate was somewhere around 10%. In an industry where 2 or 3% was considered a win. So she kept scaling. Floppy disks gave way to CDs, cheaper to produce and easier to mail by the millions. For every new subscriber those disks brought in, AOL spent around $35. It sounds wasteful until you look at the return. Each subscriber stuck around for roughly 2 years on average and generated hundreds of dollars in revenue over that time. Discs stopped being something you occasionally noticed and became something you couldn't avoid. They showed up on magazine covers, inside cereal boxes, at Blockbuster checkout counters, even packed alongside frozen steaks ordered through the mail. By some estimates, at the height of the campaign, roughly half of every blank compact disc manufactured on the planet carried an AOL logo. Over more than a decade, over 1 billion of these discs reached American homes. That's not a marketing campaign anymore. That's a saturation event, and it buried CompuServe and Prodigy so completely that AOL eventually just bought CompuServe outright and absorbed what was left of it. But success came with a structural problem baked in. By December 1996, AOL made a decision that seemed harmless on its face: switch from hourly billing to a flat monthly rate of $19.95. Users no longer had to watch a clock while they were online, so, naturally, they stopped logging off. The result was chaos on a scale AOL's engineers hadn't planned for. Millions tried connecting at the same moments, night after night. Busy signals became the defining sound of AOL for weeks. Steve Case went on camera personally, promising subscribers the company was working around the clock to fix it. They did eventually, but it cost hundreds of millions of dollars just to keep the service breathing under its own popularity. While executives were fighting that fire in public, a small team inside the company was quietly building something AOL's own leadership initially tried to kill outright. In 1994, an engineer named Barry Appelman built a real-time contact list, a simple tool that showed you which of your friends happened to be online right that second. He called it the Buddy List. When he brought the finished prototype to management, they didn't celebrate it. They wanted to shut it down, and by his own account, some of them wanted to fire him over it. The reasoning was financial. AOL ran on subscriptions, and here was an engineer giving away something free that anyone could use. The product team fought for it anyway, and leadership relented. AOL Instant Messenger shipped quietly in May of 1997. Within 4 years, it had 36 million active users. It became, by a wide margin, the single most culturally significant product AOL ever built, and the company never earned a dollar directly from it. That should have been a warning sign about how AOL valued the future versus the present. Nobody rated it that way at the time. By 1999, AOL had swelled to 26 million subscribers. Roughly half of all American households with internet access were getting online through AOL software. The stock had climbed more than 700-fold since its 1992 IPO. In December of that year, its market capitalization peaked at $222 billion, the number that opened this whole story. Here's the part about Steve Case that most retellings leave out. He wasn't blind to what was coming next. He understood that AOL's staggering valuation was largely a product of a bubble that couldn't last, and that broadband was coming, cable modems and DSL lines that would let people get online without AOL's dial-up software or its monthly fee. His entire business model had a shelf life, and he could see the clock running. So on January 10, 2000, almost exactly 2 months before the dot-com crash began, Steve Case announced that AOL would acquire Time Warner, not the reverse. A dial-up company barely 15 years old was buying CNN, HBO, Warner Brothers, and the country's second largest cable system in a deal worth $182 billion. You can read that decision too. Honest Ways. One says it was genius, converting an inflated stock into durable assets before the bubble popped. The other says it was hubris, executives believing their own mythology about a seamless merger of media and technology. The truth is probably both, and it barely mattered because the timing turned out to be unsurvivable. One number tells you almost everything: $98.7 billion. That's the net loss AOL-Time Warner reported in 2002. Still, more than 2 decades later, the largest annual corporate loss in American history. The cultures never merged. Time Warner veterans saw AOL's people as newcomers riding a stock price built on hype. AOL's people saw Time Warner's executives as slow, moving relics who couldn't grasp what the internet was becoming. CNN refused to give AOL preferential access to its content. The cable division, which held the exact broadband infrastructure AOL needed, walked integration for years. So here's the question worth sitting with. What do you do when the exact merger that was supposed to save your company from an expiring business model becomes the thing that finally kills it? Steve Case was forced out as chairman by 2003. The company quietly dropped the name AOL entirely, reverting to simply Time Warner, as though erasing 3 letters could erase what had happened to the shareholders and employees who'd watched retirement accounts built on AOL stock lose most of their value in months. What followed was a long, slow dismantling. In 2009, AOL was spun off from Time Warner, valued at $3 billion, down 97% from its peak. In 2015, Verizon bought what remained for $4 billion. Verizon then merged AOL with Yahoo into a subsidiary called Oath, which delivered a multi-billion-dollar write-down instead of a comeback. In 2021, Verizon sold both together for roughly $5 billion, about half what it had originally paid. Do the math on that. A company once worth $222 billion eventually changed hands for less than 1% of that figure. And that brings us back to that Virginia campus, the one getting torn down in 2023. It wasn't cleared for another tech company. It was cleared for a data center, one that now sits inside a region handling an estimated 70% of the entire world's internet traffic. AOL didn't just fail. It helped build the exact digital infrastructure that eventually made it obsolete. But not everything AOL built got demolished with the campus. Buddy list Barry Appelman nearly lost his job over, became the friend list on every social platform you use today. The notification chime that once told you a friend wanted to chat is the direct ancestor of every ping and alert on your phone right now. The company is gone. The instincts it accidentally invented are everywhere. AOL didn't lose to the internet. For most of the 1990s, AOL basically was the internet for tens of millions of Americans, right up until the internet stopped needing a front door at all. If you had an AOL screen name, or you still remember that modem screech right before the connection finally caught, drop it in the comments below. An entire generation got online through that exact sound. If you want another company that rose just as fast and collapsed even faster, check out our video on Blockbuster. Same story, different decade, same fatal mistake. Subscribe if you want more stories like this every week. The companies that quietly built the modern world, and the exact moment each one lost their grip on it.